Welcome to the Sweep Baseball Podcast, where we talk about all the top stories in college baseball from the past week, starting with what was maybe the biggest surprise of the season, even though it really shouldn't have been, at least preseason-wise. We're looking at Texas A&M with the upset win on the road at Tennessee. It was a real shock, especially after the first game getting run-ruled in a no-hit game for Game 1, and yeah, Texas A&M starting out like they have been for pretty much the entire year, just not getting anything going, in Tennessee looking like the team that they have looked like, and then kind of falling flat in these next two games, and having Texas A&M able to steal a series there was a real shock. Maybe it wasn't for some, but this is the first real time we've seen Texas A&M show up in any sort of facet this season.
Yeah, I mean, this was a complete surprise, like you said, especially after that first game getting no hit. And I mean, that's kind of been the story this year for A&M is that the offense has just struggled. They've actually had some pretty good performances throughout the season on the pitching staff. Been a pretty solid pitching team, but the offense just hasn't been there. They've dealt with some injuries, but they absolutely exploded on that doubleheader to win the series. And yeah, just crazy impressive to do that, especially on the road at Tennessee. If you said that happened preseason, we definitely would believe it. But if you said it going into the weekend, there was not a chance we would.
Yeah, that was not even on our radar for a series to mention, just because of how poor Texas A&M has been playing. But I think another big talking point in the SEC was LSU's sweep in just dominant fashion. We can talk about how our player of the week this week is not really a player. I mean, we can give it to Cade Anderson here, but really overall, it was the entire LSU pitching staff giving up no earned runs over the weekend against what was a top 10 team on the road. Just super impressive stuff. Yeah, at Oklahoma. Oklahoma just didn't have a chance. Got a few runs here and there, but were not earned. So LSU as a whole looked really dominant. And if you see on screen right now, we had them jump up a decent amount from the past few weeks. We had them drop back a lot when they had a losing series at Texas, but now they're jumping straight back up to where they really should be at this point.
Yeah, losing that series on the road at Texas, not really that bad of a series loss. Probably shouldn't have dropped as much as they did, but kind of just worked out with everybody behind them winning series that week. So that's why you see them working back up, and especially when you win a series like that on the road at Oklahoma, sweeping them, and yeah, the entire pitching staff just put together a crazy collective effort there, shut down an Oklahoma team that has been playing extremely well this year, and yeah, even winning that pitcher's duel on Friday, going against one of the best pitchers in the country in Witherspoon. So super impressive all around.
Yep, LSU now put in at number 3 right behind Texas. Like we previously mentioned, Texas just seems to keep getting lucky with the teams they have at home, and their home crowd is doing their job and being able to lead them to victory there, especially this past weekend, sweeping a Georgia team that was just so hot. Didn't seem like any team could slow them down, and Texas was able to at least shut me up in this instance where I picked Georgia for the weekend. Texas did a really good job, especially the pitching, of just limiting Georgia's offense, which has been maybe the best offense we've seen this season. And Texas did enough to get over the line offensively to sweep a Georgia team that, I mean, yeah, people do say it's tough to win on the road, especially in the SEC, but getting swept is a different story, and Texas being able to do that at home is very impressive nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I just did not expect the pitching staff to put together that performance. Georgia's offense has, yeah, arguably been the best in the country. So it was a shock that Texas held them to one run on that Friday game. And, Texas showed a great effort and resiliency in the last two games as well, Saturday, Sunday, because I think Georgia had the lead in both of those games, but Texas came through late, pulled out the wins in those. And, yeah, just a super impressive sweep. And Texas is racking up some very impressive series wins at this point.
Yeah, I think we should also mention at the top of our rankings now is a new team after Tennessee blundered a little bit the past week. We have Arkansas in that number 1 spot. Wasn't impressive games, at least competition wise. The scoreboard says otherwise. It was just putting up runs all over the place. I believe 40 runs at least over the weekend versus Missouri. They are the bottom dwellers of the conference there, but still putting up that many runs. Arkansas's offense may be the best that we have seen for a Van Horn team, and the pitching has been very good too. So now sitting at 30-3, they really deserve to be in that number one spot, at least for now. We'll see in the future. They have some good competition coming up over this next week. We'll get into that later. But yeah, Arkansas deserves to be mentioned here, and now at that number one spot, looking really solid, especially for the top of the SEC, just continues to do really well.
Yeah, this Arkansas team is just extremely well rounded. And like you said, Missouri, not the best competition, but this Arkansas offense has been a surprise this year. It's been their weak spot the last couple of years, but they're just absolutely exploding right now. Put up 51 runs this last weekend against Missouri, and that was only in 21 innings since they 10-run ruled them in all three. So they're just racking up those runs and doing it early in the game against those starters and against the best arms of the other teams. So yeah, this Arkansas team is scary right now.
Yep, and another big series that we saw this past weekend: Oregon State hosting UC Irvine, both on the really close to being top 10 teams. Oregon State just on one side with UC Irvine on the other. Looked like UC Irvine might be able to come out of that thing with a road win, but getting that first win on Friday and then struggling the rest of the series to put up runs. Oregon State just did enough to get over the line there, but getting a very solid series win there, especially since not being in a conference, they got to take advantage of what they have in front of them, and they have so far this season and continue to stay in the top 10 here.
Yeah, super impressive win from UC Irvine on that Friday night. Just absolutely dominated. But Oregon State's pitching staff really kept them in check those next two games, and the offense did just enough to get them over that hump, get that series win. But definitely do think this is two of the best teams on the West Coast, especially, and two very capable teams of hosting a regional and going far in the postseason as well. It's very, very solid baseball played in that series.
Yep, for sure. It's definitely, yeah, good to mention. Could be determining who hosts on the West Coast. We'll see if maybe they both get a chance, but it's going to be tough for a lot of these teams to get the RPI in a good spot to be able to host out west, especially with Stanford struggling and a lot of the other schools not having their best as of recent. So, yeah, Oregon State definitely the leader of the pack right now, even though that conference is gone. But yeah, looking at other games that happened this past week, I'd say good one to mention, good series would be Dallas Baptist. It's a team that we dropped the most this past week, going from 17 to 25. Was playing against Western Kentucky. Hosted them, lost that series there, was able to pick up a midweek win. So another 2-2 week for Dallas Baptist. It seems like a lot of weeks they've been having recently are like that, where they're just doing enough to not drop out of the rankings, but another bad week or another 2-2 might see them drop out just because they have the most losses out of the top 25, and you usually don't see that for a mid-major school, but they've just been doing enough to hold on here, and we'll see. But Western Kentucky, team that's right on the outside looking in now, they did lose a midweek at Vandy. If they won that, maybe they're jumping in over Dallas Baptist, but yeah, going 2-2, even though it was on the road against ranked competition, definitely is an eye catcher, brings them closer to being in the top 25, but just on the outside looking in now.
Yeah, this Western Kentucky pitching staff is really putting together an incredible season right now. One of the best pitching staffs in the country. And like you said, if they were just able to squeak out that midweek win against Vandy, I think they do come in the rankings above DBU probably. DBU probably drops out. Like you said, it's pretty rare for a mid major to be in at this point with as many losses as they do, but they just keep having those 2-2 weeks. So it's hard to push them down too far. But yeah, we'll see how things shape out there. I think we'll probably be seeing Western Kentucky in the rankings very soon if they keep things up.
Yep, definitely, especially since they only have 5 losses. Yep, even though they haven't faced amazing competition before the past weekend. I mean, 5 losses speaks for itself. We've mentioned that for teams like West Virginia. The reason they jumped in a while ago is because of that, because they barely had any losses, and they're continuing that. Still really haven't played anybody, but moving up the rankings slowly but surely because they are just continuing to win games and not really drop any there. But any other teams in the top 25 you want to mention here?
The only other one I'd mention is Wake Forest. Big bounce back weekend. Lost a heartbreaker on Friday against Florida State, but bounced back and really clobbered Florida State those next two games. And we've seen that this Florida State pitching staff has been pretty impressive throughout the year. So it was kind of an impressive time for that Wake Forest offense to get clicking, especially after dropping two series before this. So Wake Forest didn't move up a ton in our rankings, and I think that's more reflective of them losing the two weekends before this because this was a extremely impressive series win and kind of getting back more to that Wake Forest team we were seeing earlier in the season. So we'll see if they're able to keep that trend up or if it was more of a 1 week type of deal.
Yeah, I think we saw a pretty similar thing with North Carolina a few weeks ago where they struggled for a bit and then they turned it around against decent competition and they've continued to do so here as well. So if Wake Forest can kind of follow that same script, then they should be in a good spot. The ACC definitely an interesting time. It seems like there's no real leader. Maybe I mean Clemson on our rankings is kind of separating itself a little bit. Florida State was up there too, but with that recent series loss to Wake Forest, it's dropping them back a little bit. But it seems like it's pretty much anybody's game. Once the tough competition comes in, it's could be anybody. So we'll see. Stanford looked like maybe could make their way up into the class of the conference, but they have just fallen off a cliff now. They just got swept by Georgia Tech. I think it was mentioned by somebody that it's the first time in a very very long time that a team on from the East Coast came to Stanford and was able to get a series sweep. So super impressive stuff, even though they are struggling. But Georgia Tech looks like their offense and pitching is kind of balancing each other out. Usually it's just the offense, but this year it seems like they have something in the back end as well. So should be interesting to see if they can compete in the upper echelon of the conference there.
Yeah, first team ever east of the Rockies to sweep at Stanford, which seems crazy. I mean, that's over 120 plus years of baseball there. And, east of the Rockies, that's you don't have to go too far east there. So super impressive. You'd think some team from Texas or somewhere around that region had done it before. But yeah, the ACC, like you said, kind of a mess outside of Clemson. Clemson, one of those few teams left that hasn't dropped a series yet this year. But after that, Florida State, North Carolina, Wake Forest, Louisville, Georgia Tech, all those teams kind of have their own weaknesses or things you would second guess about them at this point. But yeah, Clemson kind of standing alone at the top right now, and a bunch of teams in that 1B or 2A term there that we're trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, and there's teams right on the outside looking in as well for the ACC, like Duke. Even though they did lose at North Carolina this past week, they have definitely started. Seems like to turn things around. Virginia, not really the same case there. They're still just super inconsistent. It seemed like they were starting to turn things around after they swept Stanford, but now that doesn't look like as good of a series sweep with Stanford really plummeting there. But looking at NC State and Virginia Tech also, both teams right on the outside looking in, at least for me. They've slowly, at least NC State, they had a pretty tough start to the season, but they've been doing a similar thing to Duke, where it seems like they're finally showing that they have potential to be a top 25 team. And Virginia Tech, not necessarily a team that was up there to start the season, but they've been consistent for the most part. So if they do well in their opportunities, they might also have a chance to jump in there.
Yeah, NC State's an interesting one. Had a really rough start to the year, and then it was a team that was on our radar again and just on the outside. Then they had another bad week where I think they lost 4 out of 5 games in a stretch there, dropping a series to Duke, but picked up an impressive series win against Virginia this past week. And so, I mean, it's not the most impressive, but Virginia was a team on our radar of getting back in the top 25. So it is a solid series win. Yeah, NC State's a tough one to figure out. We'll see where they go moving forward here.
Yeah, now mentioning a few Big 12 teams, we we mentioned Kansas State, Kansas, TCU last week. I think Kansas State is now off the radar for now, but TCU, Kansas have a really big game or really big series this weekend. They play each other, so whoever comes out of that on the winning end may be jumping into the top 25. Both teams have been very solid recently and doing well in conference there, so if they don't jump into the top 25, it definitely means something for the conference standings and could mean a lot just down the road and seeing if they can move up and potentially take the conference because of a series here.
Yeah, and I think Arizona State was a team kind of on the outside looking in as well this previous week. Just dropped a series to Arizona, so not a bad series loss at all. But we'll probably want to see, two more winning weekends from Arizona State before they're back in the conversation. But that's also a team in the Big 12 that we're keeping an eye on moving forward.
Yep, for sure. And some mid majors I want to mention before we get past it is Southern Miss, another 2-2 week as per usual. Can keep writing that off as a 2-2. It was a bad 2-2 this past week, losing at Marshall. Not the greatest competition. So we're seeing Southern Miss, Dallas Baptist do pretty similar things. Just Dallas Baptist had some room to maneuver around in the top 25. Now they're sitting at 25, so not anymore. But Southern Miss seems like they've been right on the outside looking in. They may have dropped back a little bit now because of that, but another team to mention here is Cal Poly. They've just been super solid. Maybe haven't faced the best competition, but they have a very tough stretch ahead. I believe this weekend they're playing versus Hawaii, and then the leaders after that with UC Santa Barbara and UC Irvine in the following weeks. So should be a stretch to determine if they are the real deal here. Their RPI says they're pretty decent, so we'll see if that continues after these few weekends. But yeah, those are just a few mid-majors to mention at this spot.
Yeah, one more would be UTSA as well. That was a team on our radar before they dropped that series to Dallas Baptist. That's almost a month ago now. Since then, they've won 3 weekends in a row. Also picked up a midweek over Texas, so very impressive win there. If they haven't been playing the best competition, but if they continue to win those series outside of the DBU weekend, that's a team that'll be right on the outside knocking in for us again.
Yep, definitely. Any other teams to mention on your side?
No, the only other one I would mention is potentially Florida. Just kidding. No, those guys are long forgotten.
I mean, their RPI says there's still a chance at like 30 something. So who knows if Florida, if they take the momentum of the college basketball team, they could be able to turn things around. And they don't need that much help, at least from the RPI standing. They just need to win a few games. They're at 1-10 in conference or whatever. So, they still have the opportunity, unfortunately. From my perspective at least. But now we'll head into our top play of the week.
Anyone in that West Virginia pitching staff. And he does just that. Towering blast out to right field, and it's caught. What a grab and a double play. Guzman to Hussey, an absolute robbery at the right field wall. Wow.
So here we had Armani Guzman, the right fielder for West Virginia, with the home run robbery, and then throws out the runner at first on a line. Didn't bounce at all from catching it at the wall to just gunning the runner who's trying to retreat back to first base there for a double play. Super impressive stuff. You don't see both of those things happen at the same time. Most of the time it's one or the other, and maybe there are more impressive home run robberies out there. It was still a good one, but coupling that up with that double play is super impressive.
Yeah, last week our top play was someone showing off their arm. This one is in a much more effective manner, actually getting someone out here. And yeah, just an impressive play altogether. It feels like we've mentioned a lot of home run robberies this year, but this one was impressive for what happened after the catch as well.
Yep, definitely. And now we'll look at our series predictions from the past week. A pretty rough one overall. We had some room to give here, but now both of us sitting at 17-13. Previous week, cumulatively, we went 3-7, so not the best look overall. Pretty much we got everything wrong. But could be better, I guess. We're looking at Auburn winning against Alabama, Texas beating Georgia, Oregon State beating UC Irvine, LSU at Oklahoma, the one that we did get right, at least both of us, and then Wake Forest at Florida State. So all the series that we agreed on except that LSU one, we all got wrong. Alabama did not win, UC Irvine did not, and then Wake Forest also came up. On the positive side of things, at Florida State, which was a real shock. That seemed like the gimme pick there. Felt like that was the easiest one to pick. It was just easy Florida State. But, when that happens, a lot of the times it is just too easy to go that way, and that's how it bites you.
Yeah, I think also it's tough. The Wake Forest series and the UC Irvine series, we both picked the right team for the Friday win, but then they dropped the Saturday, Sunday matchups. And so, the weekend predictions were looking pretty good there for a bit. I think we would have been on track for a solid weekend, but it just fell apart later.
Yeah.
Not what you want to see.
Yeah, wasn't the greatest. Looking pretty bright at the start, but things did not turn out great. But now for these upcoming series, I think this weekend might be the most stacked weekend I've seen this season, at least from just the overall quantity of quality series out there. Just seemed like there were so many to choose from, starting with number 1 Arkansas going to number 6 Georgia. It's a huge one for both teams. Georgia coming back off getting swept, who knows? Now they're at home. Things are definitely going to be a different atmosphere. But Arkansas is coming in just scorching hot, especially against playing that Mizzou team, which definitely helps out the confidence. I don't think they needed any more confidence there. Now sitting at number 1, their offense has been surprisingly good. Looking at the stats, I know Van Horn said that they're hitting like 60 points above any other team in the SEC, at least in conference play. They're hitting like 360. The next is just under 300. So very impressive stuff just from that standpoint. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's always going to be tough to go on the road here. And if Georgia is able to bounce back, they might be seeing themselves go very high in the rankings after this week.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This is one where everything points towards picking Arkansas, and it just seems too easy. And then you do have Georgia at home, so that gives you, a little bit of an inkling to pick Georgia there. But yeah, both of these teams it's tough when you're picking 2 top 10 teams, especially with the lower ranked team at home. Hard to bet against Arkansas, but it's hard to imagine Georgia having 2 blunderous weekends in a row as well. So yeah, this will be a great series to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And now if you look at, pretty much any series in the SEC, at least the ranked ones, there's a lot of ranked versus ranked, with the technically worst team on paper being the hosts here. So looking at number 2 LSU at number 13 Auburn and number 5 Tennessee at number 12 Ole Miss. I think it's a real moment for Ole Miss to take advantage of here. They haven't really proven themselves against the top echelon of the conference. Auburn just did versus Alabama a little bit. Who knows? Maybe Alabama's separating themselves from the top of the top. But yeah, it's a very big opportunity if they're able to get a series win versus a Tennessee team that did just struggle versus A&M. Maybe this Tennessee team isn't all that, and Kevin was right all along. So it's definitely a possibility, but Tennessee will definitely be looking for some justice. And LSU, if they're able to have a good weekend against Auburn, they could definitely jump into that number 1 spot if Arkansas struggles.
Yeah, I love Ole Miss in this series. Tennessee, team that we've known from the start is a bunch of pretenders. So waiting on this Ole Miss series, we'll see if it holds up. Probably not, but yeah, this will be an interesting one. Like you said, time to see if Ole Miss belongs in that upper division of the SEC. See if they're a 1A team or if they're more in that 1B or 2 tier here. Yeah, it kind of feels like the top teams are starting to separate themselves a little bit from that second tier in the SEC. And I think Tennessee beating Ole Miss would just further solidify that here.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe Georgia drops down into that second tier of the SEC, which did not look like any chance of happening the past few weeks. But if they struggle against Arkansas, if they get swept again, who knows? Then they might take a pretty big tumble down the rankings there. But looking at another ranked matchup, we have number 18 Wake Forest going to number 11 North Carolina. This will be a very interesting series. Wake Forest obviously coming off a very, very solid series win at Florida State. But if they're able to turn around, go on the road again, and get a series win at North Carolina, that'll be just insanely impressive. Like we mentioned, North Carolina did have their struggles a few weeks ago. They turned it around. Wake Forest now looking to do the exact same. They didn't have the best few weeks a little bit ago, but now last week definitely did right the ship there. And so if they're able to continue that, they could definitely jump North Carolina and put themselves in a good position to be one of the top teams in the conference.
Yeah, I think these are two teams that have followed a similar path throughout the season. Wake Forest probably just with like a 2 week buffer, having their series losses come a little bit after North Carolina's, and so we'll see if Wake Forest is able to stay on that on the upward trend here and take that series at North Carolina. It's going to be a tough one, and it would be an impressive one for North Carolina as well. That would kind of solidify them back into that top 10 conversation where they were for quite a bit at the start of the year, and they were a top 5 team for a bit. If they stayed on track, would have been in conversation for a top 3 top team in the country. So.
Yep, for sure. And staying in the conference, we have number 21 Louisville going to NC State, so potentially the chance for NC State to make a move here and join them in the top 25, or maybe kick them out if they're able to do well enough here throughout the week. Louisville has been pretty consistent, haven't had the opportunity to really jump up the rankings that much, but if they get this win against a team that's right on the outside looking in of the top 25, then they definitely could see themselves make some good moves up, especially since it is on the road.
Yeah, definitely a big one there at the back end. And this last week there, we didn't have any changes in our top 25. This is certainly a series that could change that this next week and open up a door for a team to come in here at the back end.
Yeah, and another series that might have the opportunity to help a team jump into the rankings is, like we mentioned previously, Kansas at TCU. Both teams right on the outside looking in now. They've put together really, really good conference records, and so if they're able to do that, whichever one comes out on top puts themselves in a very good position to jump into the rankings here.
Yeah, it's a little interesting with the Big 12. It just seems like a lot of decent teams in that conference right now. No real heavy hitters, and so waiting for teams to kind of separate themselves and solidify themselves as teams to take that conference by storm. But haven't really seen that yet, and certainly an opportunity here for Kansas or TCU to get in that conversation. Kind of felt like going into this year, TCU was a team that had that talent, but just didn't really start off on the right track.
Yeah, for sure. I was this close to mentioning Oklahoma for saying, well, they're a pretty good Big 12 team here. You can't forget about Oklahoma. For some reason, very easy for me to recognize that Texas is an SEC team now, but Oklahoma still getting used to that transition there. So, yeah, definitely the Big 12 has some teams that seem pretty decent, but nobody that's really separated themselves from the pack.
Yeah, I completely agree on the Oklahoma point. I don't know why it's so hard to make that transition for them, but they certainly just stick in your head as a Big 12 team. And yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I guess Arizona is really the top team right now in that conference. They've been on a solid trend so far. And yeah, I feel like that has to be the favorite at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I think the last series to mention for me would be for the mid-majors, number 23 Coastal Carolina going to Georgia State. Georgia State now not really being in contention for a top 25 spot, but if they're able to get a series win at home, they could potentially kick out Coastal Carolina and put themselves a little closer to that spot.
Yeah, definitely should be an interesting series there. I'd say one other back end mid-major one, Southern Miss on the road at Texas State. We don't have Southern Miss in our rankings, but plenty of polls do. I think this is an opportunity to further prove ourselves for not having them in. I think Southern Miss could drop this one on the road at Texas State. Texas State, a sneaky competitive team, continue to dominate Texas on the road in Austin. Not sure how that happens, but those guys just love living up to the moment. And, when the lights are the brightest, that team performs. So I think this could be a solid series win for them.
Yeah, we'll probably see another 2-2 week out of that Southern Miss squad like we have for the past few weeks. It feels like so we'll probably have to mention them again in our top 25, at least teams right on the outside looking in. But yeah, if you got nothing else to mention here, we can wrap things up. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to this episode of the Sweep Baseball Podcast, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday or Wednesday. Peace.